In this session, I will discuss data management, which includes data collection, entry analysis, and making your work plan and doing the budgeting. So first of all, I will discuss data collection. There are different methods for data collection, that is using the available records, doing the observation, doing interviews, and giving questionnaires. So questionnaires are of different types depending on the type of questions, which can be open-ended and close-ended. If the questions are closed-ended, it is structured questionnaire. If the questions are open-ended, it is non-structured questionnaire. And if it is a combination of these two, the questionnaire is semi-structured. A close-ended question is one where you limit the answers of the question to options given by the researcher. And an open-ended question is one where you do not give any options, rather you let the respondent say anything he or she may like. For example, the question is, what do you think about health effects of polio vaccine? Now we have given no options here, and the respondent can write any answer. The next question is, do you think polio vaccine affects health adversely? Select either yes or no. So we limited the answers to either of these two options. This is now a close-ended question, and this one is the open-ended question. Next is understanding how to develop the questionnaire. So there are a few steps. You start with writing your study objectives and variables. Then you chalk down any concepts that you know are related to your objectives and the variables that you are going to measure in your study. Next, define your variable. How will you measure it? What different aspects of it will be included in your measurement? Next is, you can consult some validated questionnaires that are available online for different topics, and if your variable has also been studied by using validated questionnaires, you can consult them. You can get an idea of how they measure it, what aspects of it they measure. You can access them by literature review of already published articles. So next, when you have got idea of your variable measurement, different questions that need to be included to measure your variable, then you draft your questionnaire, make a rough note of what questions you will be including, and then finalize it. So giving you an example to make it more clear, if your study objective is to assess awareness about plastics in our community, here I have written down my objective and I have written down my variable. In this objective, I can identify that the variable is awareness about safe use of plastics. Variable is anything that changes, and in my community, what thing is varying from person to person? It is the awareness. One person may have high awareness, another one may have less awareness. So this is the variable. So I have written down these things, and now I will think about any concepts that I know are related to safe use of plastics and its awareness. I can do the literature review to have an idea of related concepts, and I can use my knowledge and my thinking. Thinking about these concepts will help me in defining what I mean by awareness of safe use of plastics. That is how I will measure this variable and what kind of questions need to be included in this variable measurement. Next is that consulting already available validated questionnaires, but in this case I found none. So I used my concepts and I made questions and drafted my questionnaire and then finalized it. These are the questions that I included in this topic. Do you know plastic utensils release chemicals in the food they contain? This was a general question, and then I started taking more and more information about this awareness. How your questionnaire should be like. It should be valid, reliable, unbiased, and discriminating. Valid means that it is measuring what it is supposed to measure. That is, I'm measuring the awareness about plastic utensils, so I should be measuring exactly that thing and not perception or other things about plastic utensils. Reliable means that if I repeat my study using the same questionnaire, the results should be similar. Unbiased means that there are no biases in questionnaire which may distort the findings and may not reveal the truth. Discriminating means that the questionnaire should be able to distinguish between different categories of people. For example, it should be distinguishing between a person who is very much aware of the issue and a person who is less aware of the issue. So I'm giving you a few tips for making a good questionnaire. First of all, your questions should be short and simple. They should ask specific information and not too general. For example, how do you study for exams? This is a very general question. The reader may not understand what do you mean by how do you study, whether it is related to the frequency of study, duration of study, study material, or the methodology, if it is solo study or combined study. So you have to be specific while making your questions. Ask specific thing. Which study material do you use for exam preparation? This is now specific. Then avoid leading questions. These are the questions that lead the reader in a particular direction. For example, you ask them, don't you agree that polio vaccine affects health adversely? Don't you means you actually think that polio vaccine is not good for health and you giving this hint to the reader also. Next is don't ask about more than one issue at a time. This is a double-barreled question that includes more than one issue at a time. For example, what is your weight and height? Ask each issue separately. First question, what is your weight? Second, what is your height? Next, don't ask about frequency of an event without giving the unit. For example, what is your duration of study? And you give the unit after the space in hours. Then avoid use of emotionally charged words and stereotypes. For example, student radicals, union leaders, feminists, mullahs, etc. How do you make your multiple response questions? Line the options vertically, and each option should be preceded by boxes or brackets or numbers. Now I'm going to give you a few wording tips. Your wording should be simple and to the point. I'm giving you an example of a question which is not simple or to the point. So the question is, what if you are being asked to attempt an exam as a student and you are not prepared for it? How do you attempt questions? Is it random answering or well thought out? So this is not a well designed question. It is not to the point and not simple. So a better form of this question is, if you go unprepared in an exam, how do you attempt paper? Give two options, selecting random answers without much thinking. Second option would be try best to understand question and then answer. So think well on your wording so that the reader can understand your questions easily. Okay, the words should be familiar to the subjects. Vocabulary should be according to the literacy of your study population. Do not use words that you may think that they may not be knowing. For example, have you ever been diagnosed with hypertension? How many offspring do you have? What is your biological age? What is the education of your spouse? Now I'm going to highlight the words that need to be changed. So here the word of hypertension, it's a medical term. We need to change it with high blood pressure. Offspring is not the most familiar word. You can use children. Biological needs to be simply excluded. What is your age? Here the word spouse should be changed with wife or husband, which is the more familiar word than spouse. Next is underline the keywords that need emphasis. For example, the question is, in your opinion, which is the better option in preventing COVID-19 transmission? Vaccine or social distancing? Here I have highlighted the word of transmission because I want to know answer that is related actually to transmission prevention. Next is use complete sentence and avoid abbreviations. For example, have you heard about WHO travel restrictions for Pakistan? Many of us may be knowing about WHO, but we should avoid using abbreviations because it can confuse the reader. Avoid vague terms and subjective words such as here, there, near, often, many, usually, occasionally. Now, coming to questions arrangement. The arrangement should be in a logical sequence. Start from easy questions and then add more difficult, and the most difficult questions should be at the end. Start from general to more specific. This is called funnel technique. Start from factual to more abstract questions. Questions should be grouped by the type of information. For example, you arrange all the demographic information at the start, and then you may ask questions about exam preparation of students. Then you may ask them about their perception of teaching methodologies. So you have arranged them in groups. Next, when the topic changes, provide a lead-in sentence or a paragraph as a transition to maintain the interest of the reader in the questionnaire. For example, I am now moving from this group of questions to this group of questions. I can give a lead-in sentence to motivate the students to continue filling the questionnaire. The opening questions should be the simplest ones, the easiest ones. They should be engaging and relevant to the main topic. Personal questions should never be kept in the start. Simple and easy questions in start basically warm up the respondent, and that is what we need for an adequate data collection, that the respondents give their best answers. They need to remain motivated till the end. Keep sensitive questions at the end. Sensitive questions are those ones that you may think that the respondent will be reluctant to answer because of being shy, because the question may be personal or may be embarrassing. Then don't put the most important questions in the last, because sometimes the respondent may feel tired while filling out the long questionnaires and may not answer the ending questions properly or may even sometimes skip them. Use skip patterns for contingency questions so that the reader may not be forced to answer any irrelevant questions. For example, did you ever fail in exams? Now, if the reader never failed, there should be an option to skip the questions that are related to failures.